Growing up in the WCCW territory, I was a fan of the late great Bruiser Brody. His battles with Abdullah the Butcher sufficiently scarred my childhood. I'm aware of Brody's reputation of screwing over promoters, but I have a difficult time finding out where this reputation began. I have read rumors that he was blackballed by Vince Sr. until Fritz brought him back from Japan. Anything you could add or clear up would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Oh, good Lord. Well, The Last Rebel, right? That's the best. What's the best Brody book? Because there's a couple, but
there's the one by Larry Madisick and his,
Larry Madisick,
yeah,
was the one I'm thinking of. But instead of me trying to summarize this here, because it wasn't just that, Brody went in to work for every promoter and then said, "Fuck you, I'm not going to lose your belt," or I mean, blah blah blah. There was a lot of more layers of complexity to it than that. But the consensus was he was the guy in the business that would most stand up for himself, and because he was so unique, he could get away with it. But then there was also somewhat of a consensus, and maybe even I think Stan Hansen in his book even mentioned this, that he thought that Frank had got too what's the word I'm searching for? Convinced that people were out to screw him for his own and made decisions instead of waiting a little bit. Hansen was always the calmer, more reasoned guy, and Brody was we're just going to do this guy. But I can't sit here and in the space of answering a question here in the next few minutes tell you why that Bruiser Brody had a reputation for somebody you didn't want to fuck with on your fucking show.
I could be wrong, but I believe in terms of where the reputation would have began, I think it may have been when he started having problems with Bill Watts early on. Because from what I read, that was what changed Brody to that attitude of, I hate promoters. I hate every promoter. I don't care. And the best thing is, a lot of guys have that attitude and you can't do anything. Once Brody got set up with Japan, he could do something about it, which was pick and choose what he wanted to do. Even if he was at the arena already, he could still say, I'm going home.
Yeah. But then, this might be one of your sacred cow fucking things, but as much as everybody admired him for his talent, his independence and all that stuff, when he did the shit, and I even I'm sure he pulled the Ernie Ladd thing a couple times too, where walk around the ring and out the front door so everybody knows you were there, and wants their money back or whatever. But when he would sit down in the ring or just not do anything and just basically stink up the show to the level of exposing the business on those times that he did, that, because then that hurts everybody on the card. And if I can't defend these fucking yahoos that do it, weekly these days for that, then I can't defend him for it either.
You were working for Jim Crockett when the infamous Bruiser Brody Lex Luger cage match happened. And of course, it's shortly after that Lex Luger would come into the Carolinas and begin his run there. When did you first hear about that match, and when did you first see that match?
I heard about it before I fucking saw it, because actually, obviously, when Lex came in, people started telling a story because it was the locker room in the wrestling business. So when Lex came in, everybody, Brody chased him out of the fucking cage, or blah blah blah. And I never, wrestlers telling stories. It was every time you heard the story, it was different. There wasn't a lot of details to begin with in first place. So until I saw it, the tape or whatever afterwards, which was quite a while afterwards, I couldn't really picture what the fuck went on. But Lex did just at that point in time, Lex did not fully understand what he had gotten into, and the people that he was associating with in the endeavor that he had gotten into. And I think that's why he took some early ribbage from a lot of the guys for not, he wasn't one of the boys at that point.
The business was changing right before your very eyes, and Lex Luger's a great example of a guy who, with no background in wrestling at all, was really appointed an heir apparent to Hogan by Bill Apter. All of a sudden, he was all over those magazines. Was there a lot of resentment towards him because he had it better than so many guys their first 5 years of their career in terms of contract, in terms of just doing what he wanted to do, airfare, everything? Luger had it set up.
The guys could have been, we had a good crew of guys at that time. And I mean, I can remember seeing Tully's eyes roll on a number of occasions in Lex's early Munson and the company. And Arn Anderson had a number of wonderful, witty banter repartees with him on the plane and etc. But the guys could have fucked with him a lot worse than they did, but it was a good group of guys. And the one thing was, it wasn't really his fault, and they knew it wasn't his fault. And, you know, they wanted not to just crucify the fucking guy, and gave him a chance, or he wouldn't have got as far as he got. But there was $350,000 when nobody else is on a guarantee at that. Well, when nobody was on a guarantee, we all had minimums. All the top guys had minimums whenever Vince started actually giving out contracts. Crockett did in '86, but it was a $100,000 minimum. We were making so much more than that. It wasn't like we got really anything to brag about. We were making more than that on payoffs. But when Lex walks in with $350,000, yeah, a lot of people are like, what? All right, but then they tried to, as best they could, to make it work, either being on the other side of the ring and making him look good, or being on his side of the ring and putting him in the middle and hiding him when he didn't know what he's doing.
Well, with that, Jim, let's go to our next question. It's from Charles.